We are live. We are live.
We
Welcome.
are
What's up, y'all? Everybody good today?
Yes, yes. Happy,
absolutely
happy, happy Friday.
grateful.
I appreciate y'all coming on here. I appreciate your patience. Us old folks have a hard time with some of this technology sometimes, and it takes us a little while longer to get adjusted than maybe some of these younger folks. So, with that being said, I appreciate y'all being here. Everybody at home listening, welcome to the Remind podcast about mindfulness. I'm your host, Dorsey Levens, with my good friend, Joy Branch, and my old college teammate, Dr. Marlon Williams. How y'all doing today, people?
Good, good. It is good to be here.
This is our inaugural podcast. Um, Let the journey begin. I couldn't be more honored to be with two people that I know are intelligent people I can trust, people whose opinions that I trust. So welcome to the show, y'all. I appreciate y'all being here. Much love and respect. Joy, let's tell the people at home a little bit about Joy Branch. Who are you? Where you from? What you do? What you like? What you don't like? Talk to us.
So, I'm Joy Branch. I am a leadership consultant and coach. I'm the co-founder and managing partner of Branch and Associates. I have a behavioral consulting firm, and I work with leaders, entrepreneurs, organizations to kind of navigate the mindset that's necessary for change. So that is my passion and my life's work. It took me about 25 years to find where I got my groove, and this is absolutely where I found it. I partnered with my lovely daughter Yasmin to launch this behavioral consulting firm, and we are doing good work helping people change their behaviors, change their mindsets, and change their lives. I'm originally from Los Angeles, and now I live in Atlanta. So I am sort of ATLA, but LA through and through. And I'm here in Atlanta, and it's nice to be here.
Thank you for that, Joy. Welcome to the show. For those of you at home, Joy is my spin ride or die. She's on injured reserve right now. She got a little knee issue. She'll be back soon. But that's where I met Joy. We've had great conversations about mindfulness, and just really navigating through life. So, Joy, I appreciate that. My next co-host is my man, 100 grand. He's got a doctor in front of his name. We went to college together, and the doctor wasn't there, obviously, but he's worked his way there. He's there. I'm proud of you, bro. Um, he was he was my running partner back in the day at Georgia Tech. Now imagine two brothers, us two,
Yeah, I
in
don't
the
want to imagine that.
running.
I want to go back there. All I see are casualties.
We were doing good work in the community. What are you talking about?
Okay.
Yeah. The body count was high. I
Yeah.
will definitely admit that the body count was definitely high. With that being said, though, Marlon, welcome to the show. Tell everybody about yourself. Tell them a little bit more about yourself and how you got into this space.
Thank you, my man. Happy to be here. Honored to be here with two esteemed colleagues. Definitely love the vibrations and the frequency with y'all. Uh, my name is Dr. Marlon Williams, and I am an athlete, mental health, and wellness expert. And I got to this place uh, being an athlete and seeing the things that I experienced and what some of my teammates and former opponents experienced, and guys that I'd never met, just people I would see in the news. And it really got me interested in the mental health space, specifically for athletes. But right now, my focus is not just athletes, but it's elite athletes and high achievers. And so I'm the founder and CEO of Exceptional Elevation LLC, and that's my private practice. And we assist athletes of all ages, primarily Division One athletes, with doing the best they can and making the most of their opportunities, whether it be athletic, academic, personal, and professional. So very happy to be here. Thank
Good.
you.
Good to be here. For those of y'all who don't know me, I'm Dorsey Levens. Graduated from Georgia Tech with this man right here, Dr. Marlon Williams. I'm from Syracuse, New York originally. I played in the NFL for 11 years. I have a mindset training company as well called Remind, the School of Life, where I try to get you through life with as least amount of stress as you possibly can. I got involved in this space doing leadership development work with a company called Empower House Leadership several years ago, and just saw what kind of impact I was having on other people, not only other people, but myself. Because as you guys know, the more you focus on mindset work and the more you teach it and the more you're engaged in it, the more it helps you as well as the people that you're trying to help, because you're constantly being reminded of how you need to think to be successful in this world. Right. So that's pretty much, that's me in a nutshell. I won't go too deep. But like I said, I'm excited about you guys. We're going to talk a lot about mindset and mindfulness. Today, we're going to talk about reality. In my work so far, reality has been one of the biggest issues for stress to the people that I talk to. A lot of us don't really want to deal with reality the way it is. You know, there's a lot of coulda, woulda, shouldas, and this shouldn't have happened, or this person shouldn't have said that. And my mindset, obviously, we got to be patient when we talk to people, our clients. But a lot of times I want to go, you know what, man? It's just the way it is. Yo, get over it. Find a way forward. Stop complaining about shit, and let's find a solution for it. So
And
with that, go ahead, Joy.
you know what comes to mind for me? I used to wish that it was like a ringtone when, he says, you can't handle the truth. Like, I think people don't want to, they cannot handle the truth. And it's not that whole, well, this is my truth, because if it's your truth, that's something that you concocted to fit whatever it is that you want it to fit. So, I mean, that's just kind of what automatically comes to mind. Like, people don't want to hear the truth. They want to hear their truth. And your truth is what has you stuck. Because there's a whole nother point of view that I think people don't take into consideration.
Yep, absolutely. Your thoughts, Marlon?
Well, I think it's very subjective. And to what Joy just mentioned in terms of people having their truth, you have your truth and others have their truth. And I guess to be harmonious, we will have to acknowledge that we all have our own truths and live that way, not just thinking about our own perspective, but also the perspective of others. And there's a book I read a long time ago by a gentleman by the name of Robert J. Ringer, and he had a line in there talking about you must acknowledge and accept reality, or it will destroy you, and that's a fact.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things I want to talk about, because it's real simple, and all of us understand it living in Atlanta, the traffic situation here. Right. I hear more people complain, and in their defense, I used to be one of those people who would complain all the time in traffic and wish things weren't the way they were, things were other than the way they are. Right. So now I'm in traffic, I'm stressed. Might have flipped somebody the finger, leaned on the horn here. I talked to you, Marlon, the other day, and I heard you cut somebody out on the phone. I was like, I hear you, big dog. I hear you. But there's a lot of traffic in Atlanta, right? So how would you, and Dr. Williams, let's start with you. What would you tell a client about how to get your mindset right in traffic, especially like if you're late, you're in a hurry, traffic's not moving, there's an accident, maybe it's Friday when traffic is bad all damn day, maybe it's Friday and it's raining and there's accidents, so your ass is going to take you an hour and a half to get home. How do you navigate that mentally, Dr. Williams?
I think one of the things you want to do is accept from the get-go that this is what it is. And also just prepare yourself before you even get on the road. I'm running late. There's going to be traffic and things may not work out the way I want them to. I think that sometimes we forget that when we get into the car and we're on the road, that doesn't mean that everything else we've been dealing with has suddenly disappeared. And so I remember a long time ago, I was on the road in traffic trying to get somewhere, and I was just feeling really irritated and just close to the point of wanting to rage, right? Wanting to road rage. And it just dawned on me. I was like, you know what? This is coming from me being stressed about a whole bunch of other things. Let me not take it out on people. So what I've started to do, and what I tell my clients who have the similar experiences, is pretend that everyone on the road is your friend. Pretend that everyone on the road is an elderly person that you know and love and respect. And because if you were riding behind a friend and you guys were trailing each other on the way out and they did something ridiculous, you wouldn't get upset with them. You would say, oh, that's my friend. I hope they're okay. And so I think our mindset and our perspective needs to be shifted from the get-go. And we control that. We don't, no one else does. And so if we, it's just like when we get ready for game and performances, it has to be second nature. So we practice it before we even get on the field. And the same happens with the car. Practice having compassion and patience with other people on the road.
I love it. Joy, what's been your experience? Because you in LA and Atlanta, the two traffic capitals of the United States.
Undefeated.
Undefeated. You know, I think that one of the things that we haven't yet talked about is the fact that, you know, preparation has its place. And if you prepare for your journey, whether it is your journey to the office, your journey through life, you have to prepare and have contingency plans. So if you're late all the time, you need to dial it back in and figure out, A, why you're late, right? You can be late sometimes, but if you are chronically late, in my mind, that speaks to your relationship with time. So it's a much deeper topic than just traffic. So if you're late all the time, like what can you do? You know, like what's the call to action? Maybe it's that you quit hitting the snooze button. Be a little more prepared, because being late is okay sometimes, but being chronically late, that's a problem. And I think in Atlanta and certainly in LA, you know, when I moved to Atlanta, they always came in and used the traffic. And I'm like, hey, guess what? In LA, that don't fly. You will never, ever hear somebody say, I'm late because of traffic, because we know that it exists and we plan for it. So I think planning has a whole lot to do with the idea that you can be late sometimes, but if you are chronically late, then you don't have respect for your time or anybody else's, quite frankly. So,
excuse me. So some years ago, I co-wrote, starred in, and produced a stage play called Stripped. And I would get so mad when people would come late to rehearsal. And we had this conversation, right? It's like, well, there's traffic. Like you said, the preparation. This is Atlanta. You know it's going to be traffic. You got to leave earlier. This is not rocket science. It's not. You got to leave earlier. You know, and so what I started doing is the concept that they use in the NFL. Obviously, not to the extent that the NFL did it, because if we were late for any meeting, like if the meeting started at 8 o'clock in 1 second, your ass was late and there was a $5,000 fine.
as it should be.
Guess who was never late? Anybody. Anybody, nobody. There had to be an extreme circumstance for somebody to be late. But I started finding people. I'm like, yo, it's $1 a minute. If you ain't, I know, I was in the same traffic you were in on the way here. I don't want to hear about it. One of the things I always say too about, and from my perspective, people drive the absolute worst when I'm late.
When you're late.
I'm late.
You're late.
That is when people drive the absolute worst, right? Talk about perspective. And like Marlon said, it's not the people around you. People drive crazy every day. They don't drive as crazy when I'm early, when I'm not in a rush to be anywhere. But when I need to be somewhere, that's when the mindset changes. And it's not my fault that you're driving slow. It's your fault. And I need you to get out of my way. On my horn.
There might be some causation correlation there, my friend.
Absolutely, man. And it's you know, and it's weird too, because I've seen in the last couple of years, I've seen people get out of their cars at stoplights and go up to the car who they thought whatever cut them off or whatever they thought they did. And I was like, man, that's dangerous and reckless, especially at this day and age. You can't walk up on somebody's car in a state where it's legal to carry a gun, and all they got to do is say, hey, man, I felt threatened.
Bad move.
Stay your ass in the car.
Yeah, if I like to jump back in on the traffic.
Yeah, go. Anytime y'all want to jump in.
And when things happen, you know, let's say you planned properly, you left on time, but something happened in terms of a flat tire. I've worked with someone who would say, plan for the flat tire.
Yeah.
And people were like, wow, okay. But yeah, you know, you sometimes have to give yourself additional time so you can be on time. And I tell you, I really appreciate sometimes having 15, 20 minutes extra, being early. I'd rather be early and take my time getting somewhere than being stressed out and frazzled trying to rush and get there because I left late. But there are times when you leave on time, you plan properly, and traffic is just not working out. But I think this is where you have to remember that you don't want to make decisions and do things that make a temporary problem a permanent problem.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so if you can just stay cool and stay calm and remind yourself that, okay, maybe this is happening for a reason, aside from me being late, maybe this is saving me from something far more catastrophic than being late. And it's all about perspective. You know, we're talking about reality. We can choose our reality. And unfortunately, too many people choose to allow other people to dictate their reality.
I want to talk about losing control for a second here, Joy. And I want to throw this to you. A lot of the issues, a lot of the stress comes from people not being able to control a situation. What's been your experience in your life or with your clients when it comes to losing control of the situation? Like Marlon said, embracing whatever is going on because it may be here to save your life. You know, and real quick, I go back to 9/11 and all the stories of the people who left something at home or had a flat tire on the way to the World Trade Center or something happened and they had to turn around and go back home. Gabrielle Bernstein has a great book, and we need to get a book club. We'll talk about that later, called The Universe Has Your Back. And I think if you have that mindset where everything that's happening to me is happening for me, not to me, it changes everything. So Joy, back to you on this control thing. What advice would you give to people, or what's been your experience about people trying to have control, not having control, and then losing control because they can't control what the situation is, if that makes sense?
You know, I think it makes perfect sense. And I think what I try to do for myself and my clients and the people that I work with is understand that you don't control anything. The fact that you think you are in control is really an illusion, right? You don't have as much control as you think you do. And everywhere you are is exactly where you're supposed to be. And you know, when Marlon was talking about being in traffic and you know, sometimes someone will cut me off and they get in front of me and I think to myself, you know, maybe that's not the space you should be in. And so I've worked with clients to tell them when they are out of control, let's say they think they should be promoted into a certain role. And I try to remind them timing is everything. And you're being prepared for the space, and the space is being prepared for you. You don't want to prematurely arrive at a space that you're not ready for. So I always bring my clients back into the realization that you don't want to show up ill prepared. And if you're too early, you can be ill prepared. So I think you really need to kind of ebb and flow and stay in your lane, literally, you know, in the case of traffic, or, you know, when you're working with leaders and organizations, stay in that role until it is time, until you've been groomed into the next level. Because what a lot of executives don't understand or don't know or aren't aware of is the Peter principle, where you can be promoted into your own failure. And so once they promote you into your own failure, then you're there, you know, with, you know, rustling in the wind and not prepared. So I think it's reminding people that you are exactly where you're supposed to be, and to get them situated in their own presence so that they can enjoy where they are and not stay in the rearview mirror and not get too far ahead of themselves.
For me, I talk a lot about with my clients, the inner dialogue, and discussing that with them, I had to get my inner dialogue in check, right? Because I got the questions, right, that we all ask when somebody's driving. Where the fuck are you going? Who the fuck gave you a driver's license?
How about get the fuck out of the way?
All of that, right? So I'm like, listen, that's stressful. It's too much to do. To try to be responsible for the way everybody drives, it's too much. I already got enough shit to do. I don't want to do that, right? So my inner dialogue is, okay, Mr. Levins, so you believe that you know how everybody on this road should drive. You're an expert, you know. So now you're mad because everybody around you is not meeting your expectation. When the reality is, Atlanta's a melting pot. There are people here from all over the world. People in the South drive a little slower than people up north. People from different countries drive not the way we want them to drive at times. Older people, right? Like Marlon said, put yourself in their shoes or have some compassion. I don't want nobody. My mother drives slow. Don't y'all be out there blowing a horn at my mother. She don't need that in her life. She's trying.
Nobody drives as slow as my father. I'm telling you, one of these days it's gonna go viral. Nobody drives as slow as my father.
Yeah, and that's the world we live in. People are gonna cut you off. I may cut you off. I've done it before. It is what it is, right? So that's the inner dialogue that I have to try to. I call it talking myself off the ledge whenever I feel myself on my soapbox, trying to make sure everybody drives the way I think they should drive.
But you know what? I think the reason why traffic is a good analogy for us to use, because traffic really is a microcosm of our lives. We are all from different places. We all are going different places, and we have different perspectives. And I think, it's why the topic resonates with all of us, because you don't know what is going on in that other person's life. You don't know if they just drove from the physician finding out they have stage 4 cancer. You have no idea what's going on with these people. And likewise, they have no idea what's going on in your life. So I think the traffic analogy keeps us grounded, and it's the great equalizer, because no matter how important you think you are, no matter what kind of car you have, no matter if you have a C-suite, no job, if you get stuck in traffic, you're stuck. You're still stuck.
Yeah. Marla, what's your take on this whole traffic situation and just having the right mindset? How do you talk yourself off the ledge, so to speak, when you're in a situation where maybe you're late and my grandmother's in front of you going 40 miles an hour in the left lane? I call them campers, people who get in the left lane and don't move no matter what. You can blow the horn, you can high beam them, they ain't going nowhere.
Yep.
What's the mindset for you for that?
Hey, you know how Joy just mentioned there's no such thing as control.
Yeah, you got to lose.
I agree with that. I agree that we have the capacity to influence things, and we can plan as much as we want to, but we can't control things. And so one of my favorite sayings is, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I know who holds tomorrow.
I like
so
that.
That makes me think about where I am. Like Joy said, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. And there are times where I just have to tell myself, relax, breathe. And you guys know I just moved out of town, basically. So my commute is about an hour each way.
Ooh.
And I just have figured out I got to make the most of that time. And so I got a playlist of youth audiobooks, music, Andre 3000's new album to keep me calm and relaxed.
You better be careful. That might put you to sleep on the road.
You know, so it's important that we influence what we can influence and just trust that we're where we are supposed to be and not get too caught up into being selfish and only thinking about ourselves. Because at the end of the day, you can only do so much for yourself. But when you're doing for others, the world and the universe looks out for you. I just believe that.
I always ask, instead of bitching and complaining about traffic, what can you do in that time period to help yourself move forward? Because most of us who have ambition are not where we want to be in life, right? We're still striving to become better or to do more. What can you do in that time instead of fighting against what is something you can't control to make yourself better? And just like you said, that's what you do. I got audiobooks. I'm the same way. That's my go-to, you know, especially when I read books that put me in the right mind frame. You know, we'll talk about it at a later date. We are what we ingest, mentally, physically, spiritually. So if you're ingesting negativity all the time, I try not to even watch drama on TV anymore, or a lot of killing. I try to find romance and comedy, just because that's the mindset I want to be in. So yeah, with that being said, too, you talked about, Marlon said earlier, you never know what people are going through. The one reason why I don't mess with people, because you don't want to roll up on that dude who just left home trying to surprise his wife, and the Amazon man was there surprising him and his wife. You don't want to roll up on that dude, right? Because he don't had it up to here with life. He just waiting. You're looking for a reason for somebody to start something. That's why I leave people alone, man. Like you said, Marlon, you just don't know what people are going through. The next thing I want to go ahead, Joy. I'm sorry.
I also work a lot with my clients who are stuck, and I ask them, what can you do with what you have?
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about what you don't have, because you don't even have access to that right now. So what can you do with what you have? What can you do with what you know? So it centers them and brings them back to the present and gives them more agency and more influence in real time. Because what can you do with what you have? Everybody has a long list of what they don't have or what they need, but you only have access right in that moment. So, you know, both of you guys are, clearly doing a great job. You're in the car, so you're listening to audiobooks, you're listening to poetry, you're listening to things that elevate your energy. And if you elevate your energy, it's highly likely that when you walk into the room, you are now going to raise the energy into the room that you walked into. So it really is a great practice, for all of us and anybody who's in earshot of this, to just be responsible for the energy, because you can actually go into a room and just change the energy in the room. So, I thought about that, Marlon, when you talked about kind of using that commute time as a developmental opportunity rather than, a source of angst and agitation. And I think we all have that as an option.
The name of my playlist on YouTube is Commute College.
Commute college? Why college?
Commute college. Because I'm commuting and I'm learning.
Yes.
And I'm growing. And you said something earlier about you are what you ingest. I think that was the name of the book, or something that they mentioned in the book. I think about when they say you are what you eat, but I think you can take it a little further. You are what you see, you are what you speak. And you have to be very careful about what you allow into your circle, into your space. And I always say, protect your peace. And if you are out somewhere and you see someone doing something that's not normal, that tells you that they're unstable, that tells you that they may very well be dangerous, you stay away from those people. If they're on aisle 5, you're on aisle 15 in the grocery store. So what's the difference with the road? What's the difference with traffic? The difference is we tend to start thinking that we own the space in front of us. And we don't. We don't. We're trying to control something that doesn't even really exist. It's moving. And so it's an ego thing. And my fiance always says, you know, your ego is out to get you.
What? You got a fight fiance? Not you. Not you, Marcus.
Ego's out to get you. And so we got to keep that in check. We got to keep that in check.
Okay. Joy, you mentioned poetry earlier. I don't know if you know this about Marlon. He's written several books on poetry, and he's really good. So one day we're going to have him drop some knowledge or drop one of his poems here. Yeah, absolutely. And
you have to share. You must share.
I remember Butterfly Kisses was the name of the first book. Is that the name of the first one?
The second book.
The second book. Okay. Because I remember we hosted one of our teammates, Marco Coleman, had a restaurant, 201 Cortland. Mm-hmm. And you had a not a signing, but you had an opening from your book. You read a few poems, I believe, that night, right?
Uh-huh. It was a reading and a book signing.
Okay. So, all right. Yeah. Okay.
And hosted by Dorsey Levens.
Yes, I was the
host.
It's
kind of ironic, you know, that you're mentioning, and that's the cover right there.
Oh, wow.
So Marlon, what was the impetus for poetry? How did you get into poetry?
Oh, wow. So I got into poetry through hip hop. I always liked writing rhymes. I always liked memorizing lyrics. And I got to high school in Georgia, and my football coach was a poet. And this guy is in the Hall of Fame as a football coach. He was tough-nosed. He was all about being tough and dominating. And one day in the hallway, I saw someone with a book entitled Songs for My Father by William Buck Godfrey. And when I saw that he was like a role model in a sense for me poetically. It told me that I could still be a hard-nosed, hard-hitting linebacker and still write poetry. And so that's what kind of really got me into it. And I'm so thankful for him and that experience, because too often we get caught up into being what people want us to be,
mm-hmm.
or allowing what people's beliefs and perspectives and their limitations of us are. And we don't need to do that. We can be everything and anything we want to be. Hence the name of my company, Exceptional Elevation. We can be exceptional. We can elevate ourselves, just like you mentioned earlier, Joy.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, because I think we far too often we take a look at the very narrow view. And my father has a 35 millimeter Canon camera that he gave to my daughter, and she, takes pictures. And when you're using one of those 35 millimeter lenses, you really have to turn it and shift it, and it shifts what you see. And I think that's the goal for everybody, to kind of shift your lens. Sometimes you need to pan out, and you need to get a broader perspective on whatever it is, whether it's your professional life or your personal life. It just opens up a wider view for you. So I was curious. I like poetry. Many years ago, took my daughter to go see Def Poetry Jam. It's one of those things that you remember. So it was really cool to be there and see a lot of the poets.
Joy, Marlon doesn't know this yet, but he's going to help me write a musical, Remind the Musical, kind of like Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But it's about mindfulness and how to get your mind right, how to adjust your thinking, like you talked about a second ago, how to change your perspective, how to accept what is. I have a term called IIWII. It is what it is. How do we move forward with the information that we have present? Marlon, you did mention football a second ago, and we are football players, former football players, really good former football players, might I add. I'm just throwing that out there. We've had some controversy in the college football playoffs. 4 teams made it. Florida State, undefeated, 12-0, Power 5 conference, ACC, did not make it. Now, I want this to lead into our conversation about what's right and wrong, what's good or bad, or what's fair or unfair. So let's start with your take on the college football playoff system, Mr. Williams.
Oh, I thought you said Joy. Okay.
Oh no, no.
Joy's going to talk some football in a second because she
This
made
is all
sure.
you. This is all
Ladies
you.
first, always.
This is all you, good doctor.
So, first of all, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. And at the end of the day, I don't want to get too hackneyed and cliche, but it's a blessing just to be a college football player. I'm so grateful that those guys are having this experience. No one can take away their undefeated season. It's really what's heartbreaking to me is I'm hoping that the players actually play in the game they have against UGA, because I think that's going to be an awesome, awesome matchup. But in terms of right and
UGA
wrong,
14-point favorites.
14 points.
14.5-point favorites. UGA is.
We'll see.
We'll see. That's why they play the games.
That's why. But see, that's what I'm saying. That's the thing. That's why you lace them up and you go play the game. You don't speculate. You don't guess about whether or not a player that's missing is going to cause you to not be as good as you are. I mean, one of the beautiful things about sports and football is the emotion and the passion and being able to do more than you are than you can ever fathom. Being able to rise to the occasion and do things that no one thought you could do, not even yourself. And so when them lights come on and that whistle is blown and that kickoff goes off and it's time to ball, you have 4 quarters to show what you got. And unfortunately, things didn't work out for them this year in that regard. But in terms of right, wrong, what's fair and unfair, it goes back to reality. It goes back to the perspectives of the people that were involved on that committee. Depending on who you're with, what team you're with, if you're with Texas or Alabama, you think the right decision was made. So it's about where you come from and what your perspective is, what you have in the game. And so at the end of the day, right, wrong, fair, unfair, it depends. I used to hate that answer, but a lot of things, it just depends.
It's one day my daughter, this is some years ago, we were on my back patio and a hawk is flying by with a squirrel in his talons. And I thought it was amazing because obviously birds breathe, but this one stopped on a tree near my house and I could visibly see him going like he was tired. He was gassed. He stopped so he could rest. And my daughter Amaya was like, "Dad, do something. What, you're just going to let him eat the squirrel?" She's like, "That's not fair." And this is where I go, and Joy, I'll let you take it from here. I was like, in the natural world, there is no fair or unfair. There's no right or wrong. Like Marlon said, it's a matter of perspective. You mad at the hawk, but the hawk got some chicks back in the nest. It's got to feed. Right. Well, the hawk don't think it's wrong. Unfortunately, it's a bad day for the squirrel. Well, it's going to be his last day. But there is no right or wrong or fair or unfair. Joy, if you had a son that played for Florida State and they're 12-0 and no undefeated team has ever been left out of the college football player, how would you explain to him that, son, life is not fair? That's an illusion.
You know what? That would be a very easy conversation. And it wouldn't be the first time we had that conversation. And I think that is where people fall short. They don't prepare for the possibility of what can happen. And I'm not talking about being pessimistic. If you are on a team, by all means, the goal is to win. But this is a finite game. If there's going to be a winner, there's going to be a loser. Okay. And if you don't prepare properly, and even if you do, at the very last minute, the game can change. And that, I think, kind of goes back to what we said before, the microcosm of life. Things will shift, and sometimes at the very last minute. And so if my son gets bent out of shape about losing, then that's probably the best lesson he'll ever have, because he needs to know that you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. Now the question is, son, what are you going to do? Don't you have some tapes to study? Don't you now you have something to work with, because now you need to find out what can you do to increase the probability that this but it's only what can you do to increase the probability that this won't happen again, because there's no guarantee that you won't lose again. So I think it's a perfect life lesson. I don't think there's anything wrong with losing. I think there's everything right with learning. So I don't equate the lost with, walking away with no new information.
I think as athletes, and I'm sure Marlon can attest to this too, you learn at a very early age that there's no fair or unfair or right or wrong in the world of athletics. It's, can you help us win or can't you? When I left Notre Dame, I thought it was a bad situation. I thought it was unfair. I was like, listen, my knee's injured. I'm gonna miss 7 or 8 games. I need the red shirt. And I had this conversation with our head coach, Lou Holtz. And at the end of the conversation, he was like, you know what, you're old to get back on. And I was mad at him for so long, and I held this grudge against Lou Holtz. And I realized that I had to let it go, because that wasn't affecting him, it was affecting me. And that's just the way life is. Shit, I went to Georgia Tech thinking things were going to be great, but they coming off a co-national championship. Bobby Ross is the head coach. George O'Leary. Marlon was in Syracuse when I was in high school, so he knew me, I knew him. And then they leave after 1 year. Is that fair? From my perspective, hell no. And not only is it not fair, the new coach moves me to wide receiver. I was like, oh, this is some bullshit. Like, this is not what I signed up for.
And so, Dorsey, when that happens, so it's almost kind of like what we just talked about. So now you've got to pivot because things have changed. So now you have to pivot and make sure that you can be the best Dorsey in this new context.
Yeah.
I would just
adjust. Are y'all hearing that ding, or is that just me?
I am hearing that.
What is that ding? What is that?
That is, it's a text message coming in.
From who? That's your phone, Joy?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Turn that damn phone on silent.
It's not the phone. It's the computer.
But I would just say,
I'm sorry.
a couple of things. Like Joy said, it's about some people win, some people lose. These guys didn't lose.
No,
they won. And there was always this conversation about whether or not players should get paid. And they used to talk about how it would compromise the integrity of the game. And people would lose respect for the game. And so one thing about sport, for the most part, in football we're talking about, for the most part, you can depend on that field goal. You can depend on the uprights telling you whether or not it went in or not, right? Either you make it or you don't. You can run on the field and go as far as you can unless you step out of bounds. Those are clear boundaries. And there are lines that tell you where you can play, where you can't, how much yards you gain. They even keep track of the downs. And so there's some purity in the sport. And I love the game of football because of how much you can learn about life from the game. But I am so sad that this is a part of life that we're learning, that these guys are learning that, life is unfair sometimes. Life is not right sometimes. Sometimes it is just what it is. Sometimes things happen, but it's not supposed to happen. A lot of people would argue that it's not supposed to happen like this. This is one space in the field, on the football team, on the football field. It's you're somehow isolated from the real world. You get to escape from the nonsense of it is what it is, where people just justify bad behavior. They justify doing the wrong thing with all kind of excuses. They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. All right. And sometimes right and wrong is dependent upon their intention and sometimes the outcome. But these guys went undefeated. Some would argue that they deserved to get in there. Some would argue that they didn't. But going back to Dorsey's experience at Georgia Tech, where he was moved to wide receiver, I remember you and I were having a conversation, and years later, you realize that it was helpful in the long run, and it wasn't because the decision was a good one, right? Ultimately, it was because you made the most of it. It wasn't about what happened to you; it's what you did despite what happened. And you made the most of that. And because of your ability to catch the ball, you became a premier back in the league. And, I commend you, my man, for not only being a great athlete, but being a scholar athlete and a stand-up guy. That's why I'm on the show with you, man, because you're a good dude.
I appreciate you, man. Yeah, you're right though. And it's crazy because hindsight's always 20/20. And
Always.
now, as in my 50s, I realize that what I said earlier, sometimes things are not happening to you, they're happening for you. You just can't see the big picture.
Right.
If somebody has said, hey, man, you're going to go to the NFL, you're going to play with a quarterback who's going to be three-time league MVP, and they're going to need you to catch the ball out of the backfield. I'm like, oh, yeah, let's just do that then.
Right.
Like, this football shit ain't going to work out. I'm not a wide receiver. This is not going to happen. Joy, what's been your experience in the corporate world and leadership development, dealing with clients who are stuck one way or the other on something being wrong or unfair? How do you handle that? And what's one of the biggest complaints you get in that space?
I think the biggest complaint that I get in that space with leaders is the notion that what they want to do is bigger than what the organization's strategic initiatives are, right? Most people, if you work for a large organization, there's a parent company, they have strategic initiatives, and all of the leadership's goals and aspirations should align with what the senior most members of the organization, and in many cases, what the stakeholders want. And I think it's just a matter of letting them understand that they operate in the context of a system. It's much like football. There are rules. There are certain things that you have to do within an organization. And it's not fair. It's not fair. It's just not fair. And so working with them to help them get situated with what can I do with what I have, and what do I do now? And how do I add value in this space? Because so much of what they experience is out of their control. So it really is getting them situated. Mergers and acquisitions are commonplace now. That creates a lot of angst for leaders, and they don't know which way to pivot. And so that way we have to go into, where do you add value? Your title might be different. What they expect from you might be different, but what value do you bring to this newly merged organization? So it really is keeping them focused on what are your inherent strengths and what talents do you have, because you don't control the whole organization. Yes, Marlon.
I have a question for you, Joy. So taking the Florida State University college football playoff situation and applying it to corporate America, okay, and executives.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you have Florida State, who has performed, and they have won all their games. They have shown and proven themselves to be amazing players and an amazing squad. They've got everything, and they've done it. And yet, other teams are selected because for whatever reason, but let's just say that they are selected because they are potentially a better team than Florida State. Well, Florida State is undefeated. And here you are selecting other teams that aren't because they are potentially a better team. So, in terms of executives in corporate America, what is your experience with assisting clients who find themselves in the Florida State situation, where they have done the work, they have performed and done amazing things, but yet they get passed up for promotions and opportunities for someone else who isn't performing at that level because they just have potential?
And you know what? I share in your emotion. I mean, literally, it breaks your heart when you see that because you don't really know what to tell them. But what you want to be sure to do is make sure that they understand that this is more about a system above anything else. I worked on a huge project. It's a systemic reflective leadership development model. And I work with leaders to make sure they understand that we all are governed by systems. It may be the NFL, it may be a corporation, it may be school systems, but we have to understand the systemic rules and regulations that govern all of our actions. So it is heartbreaking when you see someone who's been passed over, and you have to check in with them to find out if they're okay, because for some people this is a really personal affront to them, and now it's a decision that they need to make. So to empower them, they need to be able to reflect, because we know reflection turns experience into knowledge, and then knowledge gives you what you need to make decisions. And so going forward, when I work with executives, I'm like, these are the different data points and data sets we have. Now you have options. Do you stay with this organization? Do you not stay with this organization? Do you accept what you cannot change? Do you pivot? So it's always about keeping them in the seat of power, because to change the system is like, boiling the ocean. So I see many leaders who are in situations that, quite frankly, are not fair. And so I'm always focused on bringing them back to center with their own intentions and what can they do in their control to navigate their own future.
I would say, and I love what you just said, Joy. For me, looking back on my life, and even now, the more I surrender to whatever's happening, the more things seem to work out. Even back when I played ball, Marlon, I don't know if I haven't told you this, man, but when I got moved to wide receiver my junior year, I was optimistic, but we had a young quarterback in Donnie Davis, and it just wasn't a good year. So without knowing what I know now, I practiced total acceptance back then. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to. This is going to be my last football stop. I'm not going to play in the NFL. I probably had like 17 catches that year, some shit like that. It was like, but with that being said, I focused on my schoolwork because I didn't think I was going to the league. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to need a fucking job, which means I need a degree. And I buckled down. Marlon, you remember that day I came up, he was like, yo, I'm done. He's like, what you mean you done? He's like, yo, I'm done. I'm like, I just finished my last final exam. I am done.
In front of the dorm.
In front of the dorm.
I was shocked.
But that was all because I didn't think the NFL was a possibility. And I surrendered. I was like, you know what? If it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. I'm in Atlanta. I love Atlanta. I can get a good job. I see Black people doing well everywhere. It is what it is. And then things turned. They turned out. They worked out. So that's been one of my biggest takes is just even now, just every day more and more surrender to what is, and find out where it's going to lead you. because you don't know where that path is going to lead you. And a lot of times for me, what I thought was best for me turned out not to be the best for me. And what the universe had in store was more powerful. Listen, my agent asked me a month before the draft, NFL draft, where do you want to go? I was like, man, I grew up in Syracuse. All we saw on TV were the Buffalo Bills, the New York Jets, the New York Giants, the New England Patriots, the Philadelphia, all the East Coast teams. I'm like, if I I would love to go to New York. They need a running back. That'd be great for me. Or anywhere on the East Coast would be good because my family's close. And the next thing I said was like, you know what, man? I don't care where I go as long as I don't end up in some place like Green Bay or some shit. That's what I said.
Huh?
Right. I swear to God, I said, as long as I don't end up in some place like Green Bay, I don't care where I go. And when he called me on draft day, we were in the dorm, Marlon, in the suite. Remember, we had ESPN, but no ESPN2. And the second round of the second day of the draft was on ESPN2. So I was in my dorm room watching Tom and Jerry waiting for the phone to ring. My agent calls. He's like, yo, Packers about to draft you. I was like, yo, that is not the time to be playing jokes. It's not funny. I'm pissed over here because I was supposed to go between the third and the fifth, and we getting toward the end of the fifth round. There ain't nothing funny. I don't know why you joking. He's like, I'm not joking. The general manager is about to call you. But I say all that to say, I thought I knew what was best for me, and I didn't. I ended up going to the New York Giants in my 10th season, and I understood exactly why the universe is like, you are not ready for New York City right now. You're going to party your ass out of the league in a year and a half. This is not going to be conducive to what you want to do. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to send your ass to the middle of Wisconsin where it's cold as hell, and you ain't going to have nothing to do but focus on football. And it worked out. But it was all a surrendering. You know what I mean? So that's my journey. That's my journey. So y'all, listen, we winding down. Let me know, what do y'all, before we close, what would y'all like to add to our conversation?
Joy?
Well, you just talked about surrendering and letting go. And I have found, and thank you, Dorsey, for the suggestion to read The Untethered Soul.
Yes.
Anybody that can hear me, it's a book that you should get. And anybody who knows me, I don't just read books, I study the books. Like I read the chapters over and I read them over and over and over. And the book is so rich with the knowledge around letting things go. I mean, and it sounds like it's really easy, but until you actually let things go, you don't make space for new things to enter into your life, into your mind, into your heart. And it's a practice that you have to do like countless times a day. You don't just let go and let go. No, you have to continue to let go. So when all these things creep up, it creeps up and you have to let it go. It creeps up again and you let it go. It can be things that you're dealing with at work or in your personal life or your, romantic, intimate relationships. You got to let it go. So I think that has been one of the things I've learned recently that I've been working on forever. But this book has a really great way of kind of condensing it down and giving it to you in small pieces. So I think, that's what's been working for me lately, just letting things go.
Joy, what's crazy? The guy who wrote the book is Michael A. Singer. And he also has a book called The Surrender Experiment that I just finished recently. And it's a great book, but when he was writing The Untethered Soul, he wrote it because he had a software company where he had a rogue employee who was stealing money or taking kickbacks. The FBI comes in and raids the whole company. It's a multi-million-dollar company. Shuts everything down, everything. He goes to court. He goes to trial for almost 5 years. $190 million in lawyers' fees. These companies. That's how much money they were making. And when they were going through all that stuff, he was like, this is the perfect time for me to write this book. The universe has slowed down my work so I can bring this book. And Marlon, like she said, this is probably one of the books we should talk about on this show. It's an outstanding book from a mindset, from a perspective point of view. You know, just like I talked about earlier with Lou Holtz, just letting all that stuff go. And so the analogy I use is think of your mind as a house. And if you lived in a house for a long time, we've lived in our physical bodies forever. You collect old things and you put them in the basement, shit that you don't need no more, right? Because one day you think, like my mother's got 12 VCRs and damn, I'm like, Mom, why? What are you doing with this? Like, you never know. It might come. I'm like, Mom, just no. Right. It might come back. But for me, it was like clearing out your basement of things that no longer serve you, things that are never going to help you again. Like Joy says, you can create space for more of what you want. So when we talked about, well, I don't know if we talked about it here on this show, we talked about grudges. Holding a grudge is like you drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. So I mentally, literally, and I still do it sometimes because sometimes stuff pops up and I get triggered that I thought I was over and apparently I'm not. And I got to go, oh, that's got to go. Got to let that go. Right? Like I talked about Lou Holtz. You know, one day I was just like, you know what, man? Thank you for what you did, man. I appreciate for, you know, all of whatever happened the way it was supposed to happen. And as much as I fought against that, I'm gonna let that go because I don't want to be mad at anybody anymore. I want love for everybody, no matter what you did to me, no matter what you said, no matter how you treated me. I'm letting all that stuff go. I want to fix my basement up and make it my man cave. I got to get all the old VCRs and all that old shit out. I got to get all that out before I can make my man cave the way I want it. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yep. Marlon, you got any final thoughts?
I do.
Podcast? Talk to me.
I will say that it's so important that we realize that letting go is not giving up.
No.
It's not.
Not at all.
It's not a sign of weakness. It is understanding that your energy and your efforts, your enthusiasm, your passion is better suited going in a different direction. And you are still in the fight. And you fight your ass off until the fight is over. It is not about giving up. Letting go is just releasing an attachment to a specific outcome. It doesn't matter that what you wanted to happen isn't happening. What matters is, as you're going through it and going toward it, you are fighting, you are getting better, you are evolving, you are elevating, and you're not letting anything kill you and keep you from moving forward and reaching your purpose. And that's so important. And the other thing I'll say is mental health is so important. And for some people, letting go is a lot deeper and harder than just saying it. It requires assistance. It requires someone helping them walk through it and not doing it for them, but helping them and assisting them with walking through it and working through it. There is no, it's, like they say, you will eat by the sweat of your brow. You got to work. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the work. And for some people, it's as easy as just saying, you know what, that worked out better for me. I can let that go. But other people will continually be triggered because these underlying issues that exist have not been worked through and dealt with. So mental wellness and letting go is not weakness. It's not giving up. That's what I have left.
All right, man. Sounds good. Lao Tzu calls it being sick of your sickness. He said, once you're sick of your sickness, then you'll get healthy.
Oh, yeah.
For me, I got sick of trying to control the world because it was stressing me out because I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's like, okay, the world doesn't have to change. I have to change. The way I look at the world has to change or it's going to drive me crazy. So that's where, like I said, in helping other people, I realized that I probably needed more help than they did. But like Marlon said, you have to go inside. It's inner work. It's all inner work. You have to go inside and do the work in order to see the results. With that being said, you said something, excuse me, earlier that had me thinking about uncertainty. And I think that'll be a great topic if not next week, down the road somewhere, how nothing is certain. Life is never certain, and that's okay. We've always thrived not knowing what was going to happen next. We knew what we wanted to happen. We had a plan. Can I just share with y'all? None of my fucking plans go according to plan all the time. That never happens.
Because you need to plan in pencil. You just need to plan in pencil and get 2 erasers. Just plan in pencil, get 2 erasers.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do.
Let it go.
All right, yeah, because all the planning in my life, and now I know that you almost not even a plan; it's an outline, and this is what I'm going to follow, and then whatever happens is what's going to happen, and then I'll adapt accordingly.
Imagine how trash your situation would be if you didn't plan at all. Oh my goodness!
And you know what? I've gotten to the point now where I ask God to bring those things into my life and bring me to a point so that I can be my highest and best self, period. If that is my highest and best, I hope that my highest and best self is not in a city where it snows. That's all I've been hoping. But there's something that makes me think that may be on the horizon. But I really just want to be the best version of what God created me to be. And I want to be able to impact other people's lives so that they can do that too. When I created the Joy Project, they say, write the book that you want to read. The Joy Project was born out of my desire to help other people because I didn't get the help. Like nobody helped me navigate my career. Nobody helped me educate myself. These are things that I was really passionate about. And I said, you know what? I think I'm not the only person who wants to do this. Like everybody wants to be happy, but to have that inner joy that stays with you no matter where you are, no matter what the external circumstances are. And so that was, the impetus for the Joy Project and just wanting people to be able to find their internal operating system, to understand why you do the things you do. Because if you don't understand your internal operating system, when you're broken, you don't know how to get fixed. You don't know who to call. You don't have any idea what to do. So, I think it's a lifelong journey to just kind of work first on yourself. And I have been working on myself for a very long time. It's always going to be a job, right? It's the first thing I have to do. But I also take great pleasure in helping other people navigate their mindset and try to tease apart that ball of yarn and all those thoughts and those emotions so they can move forward. So.
All right. Sounds good. Well, y'all, the first one is in the books. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. We're going to do this again. We're going to do it often. We're going to build this thing up, man. We got a lot of good stuff, a lot of good mindset stuff, a lot of stuff to help you live an easier, less stressful life. I read somewhere that happiness is an inside job. And I don't think I realized that until I got in my 40s, which meant I had work to do. Right. But we appreciate y'all coming.
50s, it's once you get to your 50s, then everything starts to unfold.
Yeah. There's more clarity. I think that for guys, because your testosterone slows down and we ain't out there chasing women all day. I'm talking for me, not for all guys. I'm sorry.
So they say.
Yeah, that's we'll have that monogamy conversation coming up really soon. That should be real nice and good. Joy might have to call one of her homegirls and get some backup. Me and Dr. Williams got some real strong opinion. Well, he engaged now. It might be a little different. We'll talk about it offline so we can see what we can talk about online without getting you hit over with a hammer.
I can't wait to talk about monogamy. I have a few different points of view on that. So,
I wrote half a script on monogamy or lack thereof monogamy. Did y'all know only 83% of mammals, and we are mammals, are monogamous?
Here we go.
No, I'm not taking that back. No. Not 80. 17% are monogamous. The other 83% of mammals are not. So not only are we not monogamous, most of the natural world, they in the woods apparently getting buck wild. We ain't even know it. Everybody having a free for all. We ain't even know. Anyway, all right, y'all. That's for another time. Like I said, appreciate y'all. Love y'all, man. This is just the first one. We're gonna keep it going.
This was a beautiful way to start the weekend.
It was. I totally agree. So y'all, until next time, we got to get some more people on to help us watch. We are good to go. So hold on, let me stop the video. No, I stopped my video. See, I don't know what I'm doing. See, this is what we talked about earlier. Hold on, let me hit the live button. See if